Okay, I'll just introduce Mark and Bev to you, and then Mark's going to come and preach. I've known Mark and Bev since probably about the mid-80s. I know some of you weren't even born then, but I was, Mark was, Bev was too. And Mark was actually, his first church staff appointment was he was actually the children's and youth worker at the Coin in Woking. And I remember back to the time when he was appointed. Harold Owen, who led the church then, was asking people to prayerfully seek God as to who we should appoint. And he said to me, David, have you got anyone that you think would do this? And I said, yes, Mark. And he doesn't know this. And Harold said, you're the fourth person who's mentioned his name. I'm going to ask him to join the staff. So that was back in the 80s. He then went on to lead the church in Camberley, Beacon Church in Camberley for a number of years, and then in recent years moved to Newbury to plant a new church, which he has done successfully. Mark's part of Commission. If you've been to any Commission events, you will have seen Mark taking an active part in that. So let's give Mark a really warm welcome. And Mark just felt he's got something on his heart for today, which is off our series. It messes up my preaching series, but Mark is very free to bring what he feels God has for us today. I think that should be.
Well, that was what an amazing time of worship. Wow. What fantastic contributions as well. Oh my goodness. Just a wonderful sense of the presence of God. Thank you for having Beverly and myself, by the way. We're just so happy to be here with you. I think Bev's just going to introduce the family. Is that okay with you? Sia, I think you've got a slide of our family, haven't you, to show everybody Sia? Is that okay? And Beverly will just, because I know what it's like, you think, who is he? You don't really know me and you don't really know us. So Beverly's just going to say a bit about our family.
Okay, so that's most of us. The Canadian contingent isn't there. So obviously that's Mark and I in the middle there. And we've got 3 boys and a girl. So our eldest boy is in Toronto, in Canada, with his lovely wife, Lucinda, and our 2 granddaughters, Talia and Zariah. And he went out there with his work, and they're really stuck into a great church out there, and they're just a couple with capacity who are doing great. So we really pray for them and think about them a lot. And then my second boy is the guy with the long hair at the front there. That's Joseph. He is more known as Joseph the Dreamer, so you can find him on Instagram. He's like a digital evangelist and does silly videos for Jesus. But
Where'd you get that from?
And this is his wife at the front here, Megan, and they together have a brewery where they make kombucha, which is a very healthy drink, except that it's got lots of sugar in. It's kind of a cross between beer and tea, but it has some health benefits. And Megan first brewed that in her kitchen about 5 years ago, and it's got a lovely ethical foundation to the business, and her heart for women, releasing women from street work, getting them employment and stuff is her overriding vision and passion. And this business has gone from strength to strength. So if you want to buy kombucha, you can buy it in Marks and Spencer's. It's called Holos. You can also follow that on Instagram. And then who have we got next? My third boy there, he is Thomas. He's at the Farnham Church, serving God with the youth work there. And then this is my daughter on the far right, and her husband standing next to Mark at the back there. And they're the worship pastors at Winchester Family Church. So you'll see them at places like Comfest, which you're all going to, I'm sure. Yes, Bev. Okay, is that a good roundup?
Yeah, unless there's anything else you wanted to say, or do a tap dance or anything. So I also... I just want to thank you as a church, really, for a number of things. I want to thank you for the just fantastic example that you are as a church. For us in the Commission Church family, we've always had really high regard for Grace Church Salisbury, and for a number of reasons, really. I kind of came like right at the beginning, a long time ago, when it was the first kind of small church plant. I think it was, not like 30 people, I think. And it's just so wonderful to see and kind of follow the journey, really. Because I came right at the beginning, I've taken a great interest in you and taken a great interest in the story of the church. And I just want to thank you for the great example that you have been as a church and that you continue to be as a church. I mean, I just want to thank you as well for the great example in terms of sending people as well. I just want to thank you for the church in Madrid, which was birthed from here, and you sending, and obviously following the story now of Madrid as well. I want to thank you for your sending to Ghana as well. I just think what a great example, isn't it, of a sending church. I'm just so grateful, and for us as Commission, you've just been such a good example to the rest of us, and in many ways, kind of Salisbury, you as a church have been kind of held up as a great example for the rest of us, and even for me in Beverley in Newbury, we kind of aspire to be like you, to be a flourishing, growing, sending, church planting, nation touching church, which is what you are. And so I just wanted to let you know that, because sometimes when you're in a church, you're just kind of in a church. but the truth is, you're an amazing church. The truth is, you're absolutely phenomenal church. And even just coming this morning and sensing the presence of God and hearing just the kind of New Frontiers legacy as well, kind of amazing prophetic song and an amazing prophetic declaration. You think, oh my goodness, of course, it's all part of the Holden, Groves, New Frontiers prophetic dynasty through the life of the church. So I just wanted to say thank you for all of that, really. And so that's also part of the reason Beverly and I were just so kind of excited to come at last. I think, oh great. So when Dave said, would you like to come? It's not like, oh goodness me, we've got to get on the road, you've got to go to Salisbury. And you were like, oh, great, we get to go to Salisbury at last. We get to come. And I also want to thank you for Simon and Sam as well. I know. Because we know, and I know, and Beverly knows too, that part of the reason that this is such a fantastic church is because of Simon and Sam. And we sense the presence of God here, and we enjoy the kind of church culture that we do here because of Simon and Sam, and because of what they've done and what they've built and what they've modelled to the rest of us. So it's important that I say that to you, Simon. And important that I say that to you, Sam, that we really love you and we really appreciate you. And I also want to thank Dave as well for forgiving me, because he's got this amazing church series at the moment, isn't he? like 3 or 4 months of the glorious church. And then I said to him, like, Thursday, Dave, I'm just not feeling that. Can I do something? You know, I was down to preach on eldership. And normally when I preach on eldership, it's when I go to appoint elders in a church. And I just said to Dave, I'm really sorry. I'm just not feeling preaching on eldership on Sunday. I'm just thinking about something else. Is that okay? And he's so forgiving. So I wanted to thank Dave as well for forgiving me for just being annoying. Because I know how annoying that is when you've made this amazing kind of schedule and you've thought about it. And Dave's obviously thought about it. You know, days of planning it and the dates, the scriptures, the subjects, the preachers, and then...
Actually, James has them serious.
Oh, James! Oh. James, it's to you I need to apologise. I'm so sorry for messing it up. I'm so sorry for messing it up. So, yeah, I just want to recommend a couple of books to you as well. So this book, you've probably been recommended it before, but I want to tell you about it. So Dane Ortland, Gentle and Lowly.
We did a preaching series on it.
Okay, I don't need to recommend that one. This one, Dallas Willard, The Divine Conspiracy. Are you doing a preaching series on that one? Okay. The Divine Conspiracy. I mean, it's a slow, thoughtful, meditative, powerful read. Bob Roberts said this was the best book he's ever read. And I thought, oh, if Bob Roberts says that, I should probably read it. It's taking me ages to get through it because it's a bit like the Dane Ortland book. It's kind of slow and meditative, probably a bit like me, actually. And it's just a great read. It's a really great read. So I've got a question for you, just kind of right at the beginning, really. Where do we go with our stuff? Where do we just kind of go with stuff? You might recognise the painting in the middle, by the way, from one of my favourite artists called... and I just thought, do you know what, that's a great picture. I mean, she does lots of great pictures. But, you know, where do we go with stuff? You know, when you're just kind of feeling stuff or you're just kind of upset with stuff, or just feeling naff, you know, where do you go? James said to me as soon as I walked in, "Oh, hi Mark, how are you?" And I said, well, I suppose I could say fine, but actually I'm not sure if I am, really. And he says, "Okay, tell me later then." Tell me later. Because to be honest with you, we just had a really, really difficult kind of few weeks. So Beverly showed you the family. Phoebe had a baby before Christmas. It was premature, so a bit kind of poorly as premature babies are. And so, you know, baby's been in hospital the last 2 weeks, and cutting a long story short, had to have surgery as well. And it's just, you know, when there's so little, you know, it's just hard, isn't it? It's just hard. It's hard being in the hospital. It's hard, you know, when they're trying to get the cannula in and they can't get the cannula in because the baby's so little and the veins are so tiny, and then it's kind of pipes and it's sedation and then it's bleeping things, and it's just been a really difficult. It's just been a really difficult couple of weeks in and out of first Winchester Hospital, then Southampton Hospital, and it's just hard, isn't it, when you go through stuff, isn't it? It's just, you know, so what, you know, where do we kind of go with our stuff that we just kind of face, don't we, in life, or even kind of coming out of COVID is hard, isn't it, for some of us? You know, we've had COVID, and we've had lockdown, and we've had masks, and even introverts got fed up after a while, didn't they? I had a friend of mine who's like kind of 6 months on, and I said to her, "Oh, you know, Amanda, how are you doing?" She says, "I love it." I'm like, "What?" She says, "I love it. I love it. I don't have to see anybody. I don't have to do anything. I can be at home. And she kind of reveled in it at first. But then, after 2 years of it, even the introverts, it's like, okay, I've had enough now. Yeah, okay, we've had enough of this now. And the whole kind of lockdown thing, I mean, it's just been hard. It's just been really hard. And even like coming out of it, kind of, how do I do this thing? I mean, have you noticed? I mean, I still do this. I kind of come to church, and like coming this morning, and I'm kind of, I'm just kind of not sure how to behave still. Do I shake hands? Do I not? Is that okay? I don't know. I've kind of lost some of my kind of social confidence, even kind of coming out of lockdown, and emotionally we're still kind of readjusting, relationally readjusting. The kind of work, many of us are still adjusting to work stuff. So it's taken its toll on us, hasn't it? So it might be you personally, how you're feeling, sudden just kind of surprises coming upon us, and I wasn't expecting that. It's just kind of, we get sidetracked by things, don't we? It's just kind of so where do we go with our things and with our stuff? Harry, are you up there somewhere?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Are you this okay? Are you happy with what I'm doing?
That's fine.
Is that all right so far? And Harry wanted to know what I was preaching on. I said to him, I don't know. So, let me give you a clue, because we've already had a clue in the worship time. So I want you to turn with me to Matthew's Gospel. There are four Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So Matthew is the first of the Gospel. So that starts what we call the New Testament, and it's kind of three quarters the way through the Bible. That's how I kind of find it, really. And most Bibles are divided into chapters and verses as well. So if you turn to Matthew chapter 11 in your Bible or on your phone, I'm going to read some words of Jesus, and then we'll talk about it together for a little while. Matthew 11, verse 25. At that time, Jesus said, I praise you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because you have hidden these things from the wise and learned and revealed them to little children. Yes, Father, for this is what you were pleased to do. All things have been committed to me by my Father. No one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and those to whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I'm feeling slightly intimidated here, now knowing that you've done a whole preaching series on this book and part of this passage. So the context is important here. So the context is weary people. Burdened people. For us, sometimes life is just tough. Sometimes it's just tough, even now. Coming out of COVID, cost of living crisis. I mean, I think I go to the petrol station, I kind of gasp sometimes. I went to get the milk the other day from my local supermarket. I'm like, what? $1.75 now? 175. Like, it wasn't that long ago that I thought I was cross-cut, it gone over £1. I'm like, goodness me, but for these folks, it was even more wearisome and even more burdensome, trying to eke out a living, but also the burden of religious life that was placed upon them by the Pharisees. So life was tough anyway. They were having to pay heavy taxes to Rome, which they didn't want to do. And life was difficult, and they've got the Pharisees putting these laws upon them. In fact, at this time, they had over 300 laws that they had to abide by. If you wanted to be a good Pharisaical Jew, there's over 300 laws that you had to abide by. Even today, for the Orthodox Jews, they have some very strict laws that they have to abide by, like on the Sabbath, you may not open the fridge. Because if you open the fridge, that means the light goes on, and that means someone might have to be working somewhere. You can't flush the toilet on the Sabbath because that means that water's flowing. That means someone has to monitor the water. That means somebody has to be working in the station. And you think, oh gosh, okay, so it's like just kind of pressure and the weariness of life and Pharisaical laws upon them. There's just kind of burden upon burden. And they didn't have a wonderful national health service like we do either. So when someone was sick or sudden sadness comes to us, you can phone for the doctor, you couldn't phone for the ambulance, you can't go to the hospital as we've spent the last 2 weeks doing. No, there was none of that. So there's constant anxiety over health and worry and children and babies and older people and sudden sickness that comes upon you. The kind of, if you like, the expectation of life was about 40 at this time. So there's a different kind of weight of anxiety and burden and worry just to kind of get through life. And then the religious people are kind of putting all these other kind of burdens upon me, these kind of yokes upon us. I was brought up through the Roman Catholic education system. And so for us, there were lots of things we had to do when we were at school. And I felt like I was kind of having to spin lots of plates all at the same time. So we had to go to mass. So you had to go to mass, and on Saturdays you also had to go to confession. So you have to go to confession, and then you also had to go and do the Angelus as well. So it's like, I've got to go to mass. Yeah. I've got to go to confession. Yeah. I've got to go to the Angelus, and you've got to say the Rosary. So I felt like I was kind of spinning all these kind of plates. And also it's really good for you to go on a pilgrimage. You have to go to Lourdes. I've got to go to Lourdes. I've got to spin these plates. I've got to go to mass. I've got to go to confession. I've got to go to the Angelus. I've got to go to Lourdes, this funny place in France. And you've also got to say your Rosary every day. I'm like, what? Every day I've got to say my Rosary. I've got to spin another plate. I've got to spin all these plates. Try and keep all these plates kind of spinning, all kind of simultaneously, all kind of spinning along all the time. And you have to do a novena as well. You have to do a novena. And I said, what's a novena? A novena is 9 days of prayer wearing something uncomfortable under your shirt. I'm like, okay, right. I've got to do a novena. Okay, I've got to find something uncomfortable to put under my shirt. What am I going to wear under my shirt? And they said something itchy. Something itchy. So I've got to go to Lourdes. I've got to do the Angelus. I've got to do confession. I've got to go to mass. I've got to do all these things. And I'm just trying to make my way to God, but I've got to do all these things. I was just like completely burdened by all these things. Completely burdened. And not any nearer God. And it wasn't until I went to university. It wasn't until I went to university, and this woman said to me, she said, Mark, what you need is a relationship with God through Jesus. I said, yeah, but what else? yeah, okay, what else? What about all these other things, because I've got to put that funny thing underneath my shirt. I've got to do that. I've got to keep all the plates spinning. All simultaneously, he said, no, you need a relationship with God through Jesus. No, there's got to be more than that. There's got to be more than that. There's got to, no. To be honest, I didn't know what she was talking about. It could have been a completely foreign language. But you know, it stayed with me. It just stayed with me. I need to have a relationship with God through Jesus. And I just kept thinking about it and wondering what that meant. What did it mean? So I went along to what was called the CU, the Christian Union. And I was telling a guy there called Graham, and he just kind of listened to me, and he said, He said, I think what you need to do is you need to read the Bible. I was like, oh, okay. I hadn't read the Bible. Yeah, you need to read the Bible. I said, oh, okay. So I got a Bible and I thought, right, because I thought you read a book from the beginning to end, Dave. You know. So after about 4 pages, I was like, oh gosh, this is really hard, Tina. This is like really hard. Then somebody else said, oh no, you start at the back. I thought, oh, okay, you start at the back. So I started to read this book called Revelation. You know, and if you haven't ever read the book of Revelation, please do. But it was so helpful. This young woman was saying to me, you need a relationship with God through Jesus. Because this is the great invitation, isn't it? This is the invitation then, and this is the invitation now. The invitation is the same. From Jesus to you and me. Come. Come to me. Come on. Come to me. Come and bring it all to me. Come and give it all to me. Come and, yes, all of it. All of it. How you're feeling, what you're struggling with, what you're anxious about, what you just can't get your head around. Come and bring it all. Every burden, every anxiety, everything you're worried about, come and bring it to me. This is the great invitation then, and it's the great invitation now. This is where we go, folks, isn't it? This is where we go with our stuff. We bring it to Jesus. We bring it to him. So when the little baby's in the hospital for 2 weeks, and I'm, to be honest with you, completely just shattered, really, physically, emotionally, because you don't sleep, and you're worried, and you're up and down the A34, and M3, and Southampton, and Newbury, and you don't even eat properly, because kind of worry comes over you, and you just feel, what's going on? Is this little one going to make it? This is so hard to watch. And when your daughter phones at 4 a.m. in the morning and says, crying from the hospital car park, saying, Dad, I just can't watch it anymore. Where do we go? We go to Jesus. We go to Jesus. They did, and so do we. Now, it might be a simple thing to go to Jesus, because one of the other things that helped me at university was Graham, a friend I told you about, saying to me, well, now, why don't you try praying? And I thought that meant, getting my rosary out and going through my rosary. He said, no, just start talking to God. Just like you and I might talk. Just start talking to God and see what happens. See what happens. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll try that. So I sat in my bed at university and I said, so, God, this is what happened. I said, so God, I've read some of your book and I didn't really understand it all. but I did read a bit where you said, I'm to love you with all my heart and to love other people. And I'm really sorry that I don't do that. I don't really know how to do that. So I'm really sorry about that. Can you help me to do that? So that was it, really. And nothing really happened. Nothing really happened. And then over the next few days, I would get up in the morning and I'd draw back the curtain and I'd go, wow, God. Wow. Wow, you made all that, God. That's amazing. God, you're just amazing. And I'd walk around campus and I'd look at the stars and I'd look at the trees and I'd look at the sky and I'd just look around and I think, God, you're amazing. God, you're amazing. You did all that. And then this really other funny thing happened to me. I started to think about other people and think about what they were feeling or wondering how they were feeling. And sometimes I'd even feel it. And I was like, oh my goodness, what's going on? What's happening to me? What's happening to me? And then I'd remember the prayer of the week before. Oh gosh, that's what's happening to me, learning to love God and learning to love other people. When we come to Jesus, you see, things happen, don't they? Things change. One of the things I've been doing recently, just on my own, and that's partly why I'm here, wanting to bring this. So I've been through the Gospels, and I'm just fascinated by these individual encounters with Jesus and what happens when people are brought to Jesus or when people come to Jesus and how their lives are transformed, how a blind man can see, how a mum comes on behalf of her daughter, how a son comes, how a dad comes, how friends come, how friends bring their paralytic friends, how friends bring their blind friends, how a centurion soldier brings in conversation to Jesus his servant and wants him to touch them, and how in every case Jesus touches them in a life-transforming, physical transforming, emotional transforming, spiritual transforming, undeniable way. When we come to Jesus, folks, things happen. Lives are changed. We're changed. We're transformed. So, there are a number of ways in which sometimes we call them spiritual pathways, because some people are just able to come to Jesus in a particular way in conversation, or a particular way in worship, or a particular way in reading the Bible, and they have their encounter. So I'm just going to show you just a few kind of examples of what we call spiritual pathways, just to kind of help us in our connection with Jesus. So see, I think these are the kind of boxes on my kind of slide in terms of the spiritual pathways. Nachungumza, Kiswahili kidogo. No, don't be impressed. It's the only thing I can say in Swahili. No, that's not quite true. So this was just to kind of give you an impression of what a yoke looks like as well, because in our context and culture we don't see many kind of yokes. So you can see in this case it's a pair of oxen. The yoke is that thing that kind of goes over them, kind of heavy, often on kind of what we call beasts of burden, which we'll come back to. And then in terms of the spiritual pathways, which are sometimes the ways which help us to connect with Jesus, are these. And this might help you or it might not help you. So if you can show us that slide with the boxes again, that would be really helpful. And so Jesus says, come to me and you'll find rest. So in terms of how you might find rest, it might be one of these ways. So it might be through nature. So you just might find yourself closer to God, connecting with him through being outside and enjoying nature. So That just might be your way of connecting. So for some people, it's prayer. So for some people, you just feel really close to him when you're on your own talking to him. For some, it's in worship. You just know. So for Beverly, for example, she's a great example of this. So in the mornings, I mean, Beverly will wake up, and within minutes, she can be worshipping, like Phoebe, our daughter, within minutes. And, I'm just like, what's the time? Can I just go and get a cup of tea? You see, but she's already in the presence of God, just kind of worshiping. That's how she connects, just kind of straight away. Some of you are like that. Some of you, it's fellowship. So the best way for you to enjoy people and to be close to people is through being with others. So like Sunday mornings, you're just kind of in the presence of God because you're in the presence of God's people, or just praying with a group of people. That's how you are closest to Jesus. For other people, it's in serving. They just love serving the people of God, serving the church, and they just know his presence and know his favor in so doing. For other, it's in silence. Silence and solitude, incidentally, are an important spiritual discipline for all of us and neglected by all of us. But for some people, just silence is just where it's at for you. And then finally, what they call intellect. So in other words, it's just, you just love just kind of thinking things through, thinking about things theologically. So like James is one of those, who just loves the kind of cerebral process of thinking about God, thinking about the scriptures, thinking about the desert fathers. For others, it's like, what? You want to, that's kind of spiritual rest for you. But for people like James, that's like invigorating. And one of the things that James would love to do most of all is have a whole morning reading, which of course he can't get. But that's what he would just love to do. That's how one of the ways that one of his principal spiritual pathways is the intellect, using his mind to understand God and draw close to God. Either way, the important thing is that whichever is your preferred spiritual pathway, be free in that spiritual pathway. Be free to be the person that God has called you to do, and don't be judgmental about other people because they don't share your principal spiritual pathway. Don't judge them because they're not doing it quite the same as you. But the important thing is, Jesus says, come to me. And he also says, come to me and you'll find rest. So these are some of the ways in which we find spiritual rest. But there's some other really important things that we've learned, haven't we, in these last 3 years about rest. So here's a few other things that we've learned about rest as well. So if you can put up the other rest slide, is this. Picture, again, from one of my favourite artists that some of you may know, is this: exercise, sleep, and diet. I know Jesus doesn't mention these specifically in Matthew 11, but these are things that are still physically and spiritually important for us because I want you to be well. I want you to be well physically, because when you're well physically, you carry his presence more potently into your place of work and where you live. And so these are just kind of important disciplines for us. We regularly exercise. I'm finding this really difficult at the moment because I got injured in October, beginning of October. I wanted to do one of the ancient pilgrim ways, so I wanted to do the one from Eastbourne to Winchester, that 100 miles, except I wanted to do it in reverse, from Winchester to Eastbourne. Anyway, in the last few miles, I fell and broke my ankle, which is just like so annoying. And I was on my own, and Beverly wasn't very happy with me. And so I've been injured since the beginning of October, so I haven't been able to run, I haven't been able to play football, I haven't been able to do the things that I do, and to be honest with you, it makes me more grumpy. I know that's difficult for you to understand. You understand this, don't you? Because you get on your bike for 200 miles, and then you don't feel grumpy, isn't that right? Which I don't understand. Habari dugu. And Buenas Fiwi. And so for me, this has been a difficult one. This has been a difficult, because I've really missed my exercise and doing the kind of thing, get the endorphins going and the oxytocin and all the rest of it. I've just kind of missed that. So I realised it's made me just kind of more physically but emotionally depleted as well. That's why it's really important that we have good exercise, regular exercise, that we have good sleep, regular sleep. I know what you're thinking. If you've got a young family, if only. But it's important discipline for us and our diet as well. What we eat, what we drink, what we watch as well. So our diet isn't a daily diet of Netflix. That we are watching our diet and our disciplines, because that's all part of us being well. Let me give an example. So for me, coming to Jesus, telling Jesus how I'm feeling over the last couple of weeks, just difficult, stressed, worried about the child, worried about my daughter. I go to college. I've been so a day a week in college. And a really interesting thing happens to me. So one of the ladies at college, she wants to talk to me. And I think this is the gospel moment. This is the moment I've been waiting for. She's been so impressed with how I've dropped out things about Jesus and things about God and things about prayer in class. This is the moment she wanted to ask me about one of those things. But actually what she wanted to ask me about was, she wanted to know, this is what she wanted to know, how is it that you're so calm all the time? Isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? I just thought, oh, wow. There's me thinking it's what I say. And of course, she's not impressed with anything I've said at all. She wants to know why I'm calm. Now, of course, for us, that's obvious, isn't it? Well, because it's the Prince of Peace. Because when you know Jesus, it makes you calmer. And you're able to take his presence with you. That's why coming to Jesus isn't just selfish. Because when you come to Jesus, you give him your burden. You give him your life. His Holy Spirit dwells within you, and in receiving the Holy Spirit, you're able to bear fruit of love and joy and peace and patience, which others see. And when they touch you, they can even take some and taste it, and it's good, and they want some of it. And where did you get that from? So I had to do a minibus driving test. Well, I want to do a minibus driving test, as you do. And normal things happen on the minibus driving test. So, you're driving along and it's 8:30 in the morning, so there's lots of traffic. People come across you and people come across you a bit close, and you get to a junction and someone goes before you and you just kind of do your thing, really. And when I got to the end of the minibus test, the instructor, she turned to me and she said, this is what she said. She said, "I've never seen anything like that before." And I'm like, oh no. I said, oh, what do you mean? She said, "I've never seen somebody drive a minibus for half an hour in rush hour and remain as calm as you. What is it about you?" That's interesting, isn't it? Isn't it? So then she said, "Do you do yoga?" I said, "Actually, no, I do something better than yoga." And so I'm able to explain a little bit about Jesus. And so that's why it's so important that we take Jesus at his word, isn't it? That we come to him. That we come to him and we give him our weariness, give him our burden. That receive from him rest. That we know that he's gentle. That we know that he's humble. That we find this unbelievable rest for our souls, and that we take his yoke that's easy and his burden that is light. I don't know what your yoke is today. I don't know what your burden is today. Your burden might be work. Your burden might be that you're a school teacher under unbelievable pressure from the classroom, from the teachers, from the government, parents' expectation. Should I strike, not to strike? You might be a burdened school teacher. You might be a burdened NHS worker, doing incredibly long hours, hugely physically demanding, huge emotional output. That might be your burden at the moment. You might be like me, just worried about your child. Just worried about your child. That might be your burden. You might have a different burden. Your burden might be a toxic, abusive relationship that you're in. Your burden might be caring for elderly parents, a sick mother, a sick partner. I don't know what your burden is. Your burden might be, I just don't know how I'm going to pay the bills. I just don't know how I'm going to do that. I just don't know how I'm going to do that. Your burden might be a diagnosis, a physical diagnosis that you've had. It might be a mental health diagnosis. We've each got all kinds of burdens. But here's the thing. We can choose to carry our burden, and we can feel the weight of that burden, the weight of that yoke, or as was prophesied earlier and declared earlier and sung earlier, that we can exchange the burden and exchange the yoke at the cross and know his easy and light burden because of the cross, where he took it all and has dealt with it all so that we might know rest. So my invitation to you now is to come to him. Is to come to Jesus, whatever it is, whatever your stuff, whatever the burden, whatever the yoke, he is going to deal with it now. He's going to replace that heavy yoke with a lightness upon you. And I don't know what he's going to do for you right now, but I know he's going to do something. I told you to do something. And so this is the and I'm going to ask you to do something physical. I'm going to ask you to come to him. So that means, I know it's a bit awkward, and it's just a bit embarrassing, and we're in bleachers, and you don't have to do this, but I'm inviting you to come to Jesus. I'm not Jesus. I'm just his messenger today. But I'm going to invite you to, if you want to, if you've got your, I do, I've just got this burden, I do, I just feel this yoke upon me, I do. And you just feel you want to give it to Jesus. I want you to come now, here. You won't be the only one. Lots of people are going to have this awkward moment of coming out their seat and making a noise and clambering past. It won't be everybody, but if you know, yeah, I do. And you even now you feel a sense of relief. Even me talking about it, you feel that sense of relief. Okay? Come on, come now. Come to Jesus now. Just come, stand all along the front here. There'll be lots of people. Not everybody. Well done. Well done, well done. Just spread out across the front here. Oh, thank you. Yeah, we can move forward, Dave says as well. Let's move, let's use the space. Yeah, well done, well done. We'll just wait till everybody comes down and everybody's got a bit of space around them. Well done for being brave. Well done for coming. There's lots of space over here with me and well done, well done. Great. Okay, this is it. This is you and Jesus now. So bring your burden to him. Bring your yoke to him. Just right now, just tell him. Tell him all about it. And bring it to him. Well done. Well done. Well done. That's it. Give it to him. Give it to him right now. That's it. Tell him all about it. And now feel his exchange. Know him lifting the yoke right now. Know him lifting that heavy yoke right now. That's it. Come and touch your beloved ones, Jesus. Come and touch everyone. Every burden of anxiety, every burden of depression, every burden of family, every burden of children, every burden of health, every burden of parents, every burden of work, every burden of travel, every burden of the classroom, every burden of the staff room, every burden. Jesus, won't you come now and bless your beloved ones with your yoke that's easy and your burden that's light. Come now, Jesus. Yeah. Just stay with it. Let Jesus touch you and love you, embrace you and hold you, and do what only he can do. That's it. Stay with it. Stay with it. His gentleness. In His gentleness. The gentle one is here for you. Your gentle Saviour. Stay with it. We're not hurrying Him. We're not hurrying you. Just stay.
It's important that we stay with this and that you really feel that your sense of your burden has gone. I'm just going to start to go and pray for people. Mark and Bev, if you feel you want to pray for individuals, do go and do that. Most of the people who would normally pray for people are responding, and so it's important that you receive from God before you start rushing off to others. And so, but if you've been prayed for and you feel that you have laid your burden at the feet of the cross, the foot of the cross with Jesus, and you feel released to go and pray for others, then you go and do that. And for you who've responded, don't rush away. If you want someone to pray for you, it might take a little while before we get to you. It may be that you feel that you've already done your business with Jesus, but if you want prayer, hang around. We'll stay until everyone who wants prayer has been prayed for. So if Christine, you could play. We're gonna minister to people, and we'll just stay in the presence of God as we do that.